Picture this, you're curled up on the couch watching your favorite rom-com for the millionth time. The main characters are so perfect for each other, they just don't know it yet. There's drama, there's tension, and then boom, they realize they're in love and everything falls into place. Now let me ask you something, how many times has that happened to you in your real life? If you're anything like me, the answer to that is probably never. Today we're going to talk about why that is and why it's actually okay. You know those magical movie moments where the couple's eyes meet across a crowded room and suddenly everything falls into place? Yeah, about that. Let me tell you, real life doesn't quite work like that. I've been in plenty of crowded rooms, and let me tell you, the only thing I end up meeting is someone's elbow as they're trying to get past me to get in line for coffee. Now let's break down a typical rom-com story, shall we? Girl meets boy, they have some cute misunderstandings, probably a lot of miscommunication, and then boom, happily ever after. It's a formula we've seen a million times, and let me tell you, I still eat it up every single time. But here's the thing, real life doesn't come with a soundtrack and good lighting. Sometimes you meet your soulmate while you're both wearing sweatpants at the grocery store, arguing over the last box of Rice Krispie treats. Or maybe you're mindlessly swiping on Instagram and stumble across their profile. Not exactly the stuff of Hollywood dreams, right? Now, I'll be honest with you, I've actually tried recreating some of these classic rom-com scenes in real life. Spoiler alert, it doesn't always go as planned. Writing my phone number on a bookmark and sliding it into a woman's book at the bookstore. Yeah, apparently she had a boyfriend. Fake dating? I've tried that twice. It worked for a bit until it didn't. And I can tell you right now that running through an airport to catch her before she gets on a plane might get you tackled by TSA. Now, I haven't done that last one, but I promise you that is what would happen. So how do romantic comedies distort our perception of our real life love? Well, for starters, they give us this idea that love should be effortless. That if it's meant to be, everything will just fall into place like magic. But in my experience, real relationships take work. They're not all grand gestures and mind reading. Sometimes it's just about appreciating the little moments, like when your partner remembers how you like your coffee or listens to you rant about your day without complaint. Rom-coms also tend to skip over the bland, messy parts of relationships. You know, the arguments over whose turn it is to do the dishes or the awkward conversations about money. They make us believe that when you find the one, everything will be perfect. But let me tell you, even when you're with the right person, there are going to be challenges. It's how you work through those challenges together that really matters. Don't get me wrong, I still love a good rom-com. There's just something comforting about knowing that no matter what obstacles the characters face, they'll end up together in the end. But we need to remember that they're selling us fantasy, not a relationship manual. Real love isn't about perfect timing or elaborate declarations. It's about finding someone who sees all your flaws and quirks and chooses to stick around anyways. Now let's talk about what happens after the credits roll, because that's where the real story begins. You know, the part where Prince Charming leaves his dirty socks on the floor and Cinderella realizes he snores like a chainsaw? Remember that feeling when you first fell in love? Everything seemed perfect. But what if I told you the real magic is when the rose-tinted glasses come off? Let's peek behind the curtain of happily ever after and discover why real love might be even better than the fairy tales. So you found your perfect match. They're funny, kind, and oh so charming. You're on cloud 9 thinking you've hit the relationship jackpot. But then you move in together, and suddenly it's like you're living with a completely different person. They don't wake up to alarms. The dishes? Apparently they think those clean themselves. Or maybe they're just grumpy in the morning, and it's like living with a bear that hasn't had coffee yet. Now I know what you're thinking, this isn't what I signed up for. We've all been there. We're taught to expect this perfect fairy tale romance where everything just falls into place. But let me tell you, real love is messy. It's complicated. And sometimes it involves heated debates about when the TV needs to go off at night. But here's something that takes most people too long to figure out. Those annoyances, those flaws, that's what makes your relationship unique and real. They're the stuff the real love stories are made of, not the kind in the movies, but the kind that lasts. So why is it okay if your relationship doesn't look like a fairy tale? Well, for starters, because fairy tales aren't real. Sorry to break it to you, but Prince Charming probably snores too. Real relationships are about two imperfect people choosing to love each other despite and sometimes because of their flaws. Here's an interesting fact that I kept coming across while researching romance in general as someone who's writing a romance novel. Studies show that couples who laugh about each other's quirks and flaws tend to have stronger and longer lasting relationships. It's like the universe is telling us, hey, stop trying to be perfect and embrace your weirdness. Think about it. Those little things that drive you crazy, they're also the things that make your partner uniquely them. Maybe they leave their socks on the floor, but they also make you laugh like no one else can. Maybe they're terrible at remembering important dates, but they always know how to cheer you up when you're down. So maybe instead of waiting for Prince Charming, we should be looking for someone who will take out the trash without complaining. It might not be glamorous, but it's real. And in my book, that's more valuable than a fairy tale ending. But I know what you're thinking. What about all those big romantic moments that we've been promised? The grand gestures, the sweeping declarations of love. Picture this, your partner shows up at your office with a dozen roses, a giant banner, and a flash mob. Sounds amazing, right? Something out of the movies. But what if you're in the middle of a really important work call? Or maybe you're just having a bad hair day and don't want to be the center of attention. Suddenly that grand gesture doesn't seem so grand anymore. Now, I'm not saying all real-life big romantic gestures are bad, but in the movies, they've sold us on this idea that love is all about big dramatic moments like that. In real life though, those grand gestures are few and far between, and sometimes they can even backfire. I'll let you in on a little secret. One time, I tried to write an entire book for my partner. It was my grand gesture. We're talking 100,000 words, like the size of Powerless or Fourth Wing. I poured my heart and soul into it, thinking it was going to be the grandest declaration of love. But guess what? Our relationship ended before I even finished writing it. Talk about awkward. The truth is, real love isn't about those big, showy moments. It's in the small, everyday acts of kindness and consideration. It's the little things that often go unnoticed but make all the difference. So how can fixating on grand gestures make us miss everyday moments of love? Well, while we're waiting for that big movie-worthy moment, we might miss the magic going on right in front of us. Here's a quote from one of my favorite romance novels, Better Than the Movies. Sometimes we get so tied up in our idea of what we think we want that we miss out on the amazingness of what we could actually have. It's bringing your partner soup when they're sick, or remembering to pick up their favorite snack from the store. It's listening to them vent about their day, even when you're tired yourself. These little moments might not make for exciting movie scenes, but they're the sign of a strong, lasting relationship. They show that you're paying attention and that you care about your partner's needs and happiness. And the best part, you don't need a big budget or elaborate planning to pull them off. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy a good romantic gesture now and then, but it's important to remember that consistent, everyday kindness is what actually keeps a relationship going strong. It's about showing up for each other day after day in both big and small ways. So maybe instead of waiting for that grand perfect moment to express your love, try focusing on the little things. Show your partner that you care in small ways every single day. Trust me, it adds up to something pretty spectacular. But if grand gestures aren't the key to love, then what is? Remember that time you expected your partner to know just what was bothering you? How'd that work out? If you're like me, probably not great. But don't worry, there's a surprisingly simple solution that most rom-coms conveniently leave out. Pop quiz. Your partner seems upset. Do you A, dramatically guess what's wrong? Or B, ask them? If rom-coms taught you anything, you'd pick A. But in the real world, communication is actually key. And let me tell you, it is a game changer. We've all been fed this idea that if someone really loves you, they should just know what you're thinking. Like they should be able to read your mind or something. Learning to talk about our feelings, needs, and expectations is not always easy, but it's important. I mean, think about it. How's your partner supposed to know that you're upset at them for forgetting your Starbucks order if you don't tell them? And it's not always about agreeing, but about understanding each other. When you actually talk things out, you're giving your relationship the chance to grow. You're saying, hey, I care about you enough to let you know what's going on in my head. And trust me, that's way more romantic than any grand gesture you've seen in the movies. But here's the thing, good communication isn't just about talking. It's about listening too. So maybe instead of waiting for that perfect movie moment where everything just falls into place, we should focus on building our communication skills. It might not be as dramatic as running through an airport to stop a plane, but it's a whole lot more effective. And hey, who knows, maybe in actually talking to each other, we'll create some movie-worthy moments of our own. They might not involve as many grand gestures or dramatic declarations of love, but they're real. And that's way better than any script that Hollywood could come up with. But what does this all mean for our ideas of love? Well, that's what we're going to talk about next. So stick around because we're going to wrap up this whole thing in a way that might just change how you think about relationships forever. So here's the deal. Real love isn't some perfectly scripted rom-com. It's messy, it's complicated, and sometimes it's just plain awkward. But you know what? That's actually what makes it so beautiful. Real love is about finding someone who sees all of your weird quirks and flaws and still chooses to stick around. It's not about grand gestures or mind reading, it's about showing up for each other every single day, through the good times and the bad. I love what psychologist Eli Finkel said. Real love is not about finding someone who completes you, but finding someone you can grow with. That's the real magic. It's about finding a partner to navigate life's ups and downs together. So next time you're curled up watching your favorite rom-com, enjoy the fantasy. But remember, your real life love story, with all of its imperfections, is going to be way better than anything Hollywood could ever dream up. It's uniquely yours, flaws and all, and that's pretty amazing when you think about it.